Hi and welcome to LawWiser, India's first video-only knowledge-sharing platform. Welcome to our Gaming Week, Gaming for Next Gen. Today we are having an interesting conversation on betting and gambling surrounding esports. We all keep hearing about esports, but not many of us are really aware of the differences that esports and fantasy sports have. It's been picked up, especially post the lockdown, people getting glued to gaming, finding different options and venues. So, just to discuss this, we have an amazing panel of experts here today with us. We have Mr. Anton, he is CEO at Parimatch International. We have Stepan Shulga, he's head of esports at Parimatch. And we have Vidushpat Singhania, he's managing partner at Krida Legal. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for taking your time out for this interesting panel discussion today. So to begin with, we would want our audience first to understand what is esports and how they are different from, fantasy sports. So Anton, considering you come from this gaming background, if you could just quickly, take our audience through it, would be great.
Yes, hello everyone. So to answer short, so esports is almost same equal sports as a football, but it's just a computer game that two teams or two players are challenging between each other. So the goal is to win. So there are almost similar championships happening globally, happening in different countries. And the goal of this tournaments is actually to win. The most popular games, it depends from the part of the world, but if so Stepan has better expertise in this, I think he will add something there. But Counter-Strike and Dota is, I think, top two games in the world that are most popular. In Asia region, there are some different games like PUBG Mobile and some other games as well. But overall, this is, I think, new generation sport that is becoming very popular in many countries. So Parimatch is active in 20 plus countries. And in some countries, esports is already in top three sports and growing very fast, especially new generation of youngsters, of players. They prefer esports because it's not dependent on any, dates, on any weather conditions, so you can play from esports, and there is a huge industry now happens behind this. I think it's overall this is like background of esports.
So Sanya, thank you. I'll just add to Anton's point, and then obviously Stefan is expert at esport, but maybe added the Indian angle on this aspect. In India, we are struggling with two definitions of esports. That is from the perspective of the organized sports. The first definition that is coming across is from the Asian Council, the Olympic Council of Asia, which basically lists down certain sports which they say is esports, and then any game which they include and which they take as an esport, and where it's part of the Asian Games, and whoever participates in that is classified as esport. So that is one aspect of it. The second is a new definition of esport, which is more coming from the IOC or the International Olympic Committee's angle, where they're talking about is that traditional sports, when they are played in an electronic version or a virtual version, those will be treated as esport for the perspective of competing at the Olympic Games. So eventually they're also looking at esports coming in at a competitive level within the sporting ecosystem. So they are looking at only virtual version of the current sports, whereas the Olympic Council of Asia is looking at identifying certain computer games as esports, and they could include like Dota, Hearthstone, amongst others. Those were actually exhibition events in the Asian Games. So I think that's a two varied definitions there of esport when we talk about the Indian perspective. Let's see where this goes.
Yeah, I can add something. So we have to divide a lot of computer games we have at the moment around the world. We have more than 50,000 of various computer games all around the world, but not all of them esports. I have opinion that only 5 or 6 games could called as a traditional endemic esports. For me, it's League of Legends, it's Valorant, Counter-Strike, and Dota 2. The main one, the core one, when the people playing on PCs between each other. So we have some structure around it. We have big championships, we have big prizes, and other games are coming. For example, Rainbow Six, for example, Call of Duty, Rocket League, and many others. And as Anton said before, we have different picture in different regions. For example, in India, mobile games are extremely popular. So they are, I cannot even describe how it's popular because of some points in India. A lot of people don't have PCs. I mean, gaming PCs. So it was like a missed 10 years ago or something like this. And at the moment, a lot of people just using their mobiles and they want to compete. A lot of young people just want to compete with each other. They just using mobiles. Other stuff and other side of all of this, it's a simulation of traditional sports. For example, FIFA, NBA, cricket, and other. I cannot call it esports. It's some kind of computer games as well. But all of this stuff, as our colleague said before, are just growing, and growing. And as for me, it's really equal kind of sport as a football or other world.
Very well explained, all of you. Thank you for adding the Indian perspective with Vidushpat and Anton and Stepan, actually giving proper examples and explaining our audience what really is esports. So, next, going to you, Stepan, since you are also an expert on esport, if you can just share certain thoughts on esports betting. What is it? And, how has it risen globally? If you can just explain that to our audience.
Okay, I can start. We discussed that it's big at the moment. We have structure, we have understanding of scheduling, we have everything that can tell us this is the real big sport. And just imagine, for example, you are 20 years old guy, and 5 years ago you just liked some game. You started to play with your friends. You understand everything inside this game. You understand the rule, and that is why you could be engaged in some process that we called broadcast. So you see, as a football game, you see on the screen something that you can cheer for, and you can understand the rules. You can understand who will win, maybe who will lose. And after that, you want to get some emotion out of it. You understand that a lot of people around you can place a bet on the sports. In the esports, the same situation. If I have nice product, because in the Parimatch we're trying to do a lot to just fit esports fan needs, to give them a product that related to esports as much as possible. We have a lot of video stuff, we have a lot of statistics information on our platform, and so on. And that is why the more esports will grow on the planet, the more esports betting will grow. It's a connected stuff to each other. So as for me, as Anton said before, in some regions we have esports at the moment top 3 kind of sport, and it depends on the region. I think, and in the 5 years, globally on the planet, it would be top 3 kind of sport in any sports betting company.
Thank you. Thank you, Stepan. Yeah. No, actually, the point is right. The more the esports will rise, of course, the more the betting will also rise with it. So, Anton and Vidushpat, do you have any thoughts there?
Yeah, so just to add, Stepan, he's absolutely right. So this is very fast growing sport. And apart from people who actually, so first, I think it started from the interest of the players who are actually playing these games. Then there is a big audience of people who are actually watching this game. So there is a huge amount of streamings, and there is a millions of people that actually watch esports games, similar as we used to watch football games. And as a next step, evolutionally, betting happens. When there is a big amount of teams, tournaments, and big amount of viewers, then definitely as a next step, they want to bet and they want to support their favorite teams. They want to win on the winnings of their favorite teams. So this is just another step of this evolution and growth of esports.
No, I echo the sentiment of Anton and Stepan, right? Like how sports started, initially it was restricted to just few people playing in maybe, if you see the 1700, 1800s in a cricket ground or in a particular venue. And the sports got revolutionized when broadcasting started, when it became available on television. That's the time the real money in sports came in, right? Because now the eyeballs were not limited to the 10,000 or 20,000 people at the venue. It just reached outside the venue. Similarly, esports also, the revolution started. Initially, it was just restricted to people who were playing. Slowly, platforms like Twitch and other platforms came in where actually people started broadcasting what they were playing, and people were watching that. Other people playing because they either wanted to learn how to play that game, or they just found it as an interesting content to watch. And as and when the broadcasting community and as the viewership of esports grows, is where I think betting comes in, because we recognize sports having more broadcasting or more eyeballs, and I think eventually the betting also angle comes in.
Yes, and also just to add, more value to understanding of how big is esports, I would say that I don't remember exact number. I think Stepan will add this, but the international tournament, this is the biggest tournament global for esports. I think that the winning team won somewhere around $20 million, the prize pool. So just to understand that how big it is. And if the prizes are so huge, understand how big is the industry behind that. Stepan, I'm not mistaken about the number.
Yeah, it was huge prize pool, but it's some unique feature for this game, because Dota 2 are they were always trying to attract people with a huge prize pools. The more interesting thing, I think it's a big amount of people who are watching it through other platforms. For example, CS:GO Major is a championship of the world in Sweden months ago. It was around 3 million people watching it in one moment, like a concurrent viewers, and more than 15 million people that are watching it in general, as I can understand from the statistic information. And it's a lot of people, and a lot of platforms as well. They're trying to show this. That is why, and statistics sometimes are difficult to calculate. For me, as Anton said before, huge prize pools and really big amount of people that watching it and cheer for their players are the most important keys in this.
True, true. Well said. Of course, the more they attract the audience, the more, you were going to see the changes in it. So that just takes us to the next part of it, the fact that esports have been rising at a fast pace. Vidushpat, if you can just share, especially from the India perspective, first, what are the laws related to esports betting and, under which they are being governed in India at present?
Thank you, Sanya. I think the issue that we need to understand is what is esports betting, because the biggest issue I find is a lot of people get confused vis-a-vis betting, vis-a-vis participation fee. So let's break down. I will not say betting, but let's just break down on how money in esports is put in by the players. The first way that they put in the money is where each player pays a participation fee, either individually or as a team, and they come and compete in a particular tournament or an event, and they get a prize money. In my opinion, that is not betting, because in traditional rummy or poker, that is treated as betting, because there you are actually putting some money in as a player, and you are coming and winning a prize, and they say that is betting, because that is what sometimes authorities say. Even the websites don't say that that is betting. They say we are playing on our own skill. But in esports, it's like a traditional sport. Like if an IPL team is playing, say, if somebody bought a team, then they are paid certain money to buy the team. They have a right to play in the IPL, and whoever wins will get a prize money. Esport is similar. It's the same thing, because once you recognize it as a sport, the same thing. So I don't think that is betting at all. So I thought I wanted to clear that aspect out. The second is obviously just like traditional sports, if two teams or two players or five players are playing, you directly are not playing there, but you're just a viewer who's putting some money on somebody else's skill to play. That is betting. Now that is very similar to sports betting, and the laws apply or that are applicable to sports betting apply, which is largely it is illegal, subject to regulation. At this point of time in India, sports betting licenses are only there in Sikkim and Meghalaya. So you technically are allowed to bet only in Sikkim and Meghalaya. I think you might just get in Nagaland as well for esports betting because they allow for betting on virtual sports. So I think you can read the definition in a bit larger avenue and say that yes, it allows for esports betting. But no other state India allows esports betting. So by law it is prohibited. The third angle, which a lot of people don't know, and which is again a very tricky and interesting issue, is staking a player or backing a player who's actually playing. So here you're not betting on somebody winning or losing or a particular event. You're actually funding a player's participation fee so that he can go and participate in a tournament, or funding a team that they can participate in a tournament. Now that becomes something like a corporate buying a team, right? It's a team which is going to play in the particular IPL or ISL or be
Yeah,
that.
precisely. Something very similar to what happens in IPL, where they support a team or a player, right?
Right. Now, there the law is absolutely in the gray. There is no decisions or any aspect on that, whether backing is going to be included within the aspect of betting or not. So, I think these are the three aspects I thought I'll discuss on the sports. If we talk about how what esports betting is classified or consumed.
So thank you, Vidushpat, for actually simplifying and explaining that to our audience, and that that there are only three states, probably two, and third only by broader definition that could be included that allows esports betting. So, Anton and Stephen, do you have any take? What are the international laws, or you feel that there needs to be a change in law? If you want to share your thoughts, anything specific here.
I think as of now, we don't have any kind of issues or kind of exclusions in countries that we're operating, licensed countries that we're operating, that brings esports as a something different. So in CIS markets, esports is treated similarly as a usual sport, and it comes under similar regulation as a football. And there is no difference. So we're paying tax from GGR, and there is no difference on any kind of regulations. Maybe Stepan knows something better than me.
So regulations are always a bit tough to discuss because all of our industry around us are getting more digitalized from the second to second. So 5 years ago we have one rules, and right now at the moment we have completely other rules because the world are changing around us. So the regulations have to be as quick and as fast as possible. As for me, regulations have to give everybody the clear picture that are going around you, what you can do, what you couldn't do, and something like this. For the esports, I consider some regulations as a help. So to help people understand what's going on around them, as a help to can I be a professional esport players? What about my taxes? What about my visa policy for other countries? What about my status as a sportsman here in my country? Or can I consider myself as a professional esports player? And what is the meaning of this? And the other stuff, it's a betting regulations. For me, it have to be the same. What doesn't mean? Sorry for this. Let's back to the question. For me, it's mean that the sports betting regulations have to be the same for the esports, because for me it's equal, sports and esports.
Thank you, Stephen, for actually highlighting also the fact that there would be kind of a separate regulation that needs to be there for the players who are part of it, for them to have more clarity in terms of taxation and the other aspects. and at the same time, the betting aspect of it that also needs to be regulated separately, but done in a way that kind of encourages and develops the esport rather than hampers it. So that just takes us to our last question to all of you. If you all can share the current scenario of esports globally, and what are the growth drivers associated with it? And do you feel there are any global challenges that are associated with esports betting? If you can just highlight these two, the growth aspect as well as the challenges.
Esports is growing in the countries with big penetration of desktop devices, right? So India, first device for Indians is mobile phone. So first device for, let's say, Ukrainians and Russians was desktop. So amount of gamers all the time and players all the time growing. Sometimes there is a big challenges for the countries to actually grow esports industry. Is gateways, is like a bridges that trying to block some kind of connections. So let's say in Emirates, even in India, there is a big government gateways that are blocking all connections. So esports is a sport where internet connection is one of the most important part, and not only the speed of the connection, but mostly the speed of sending of the information. So it should be no delays, because when you're shooting, you want to reach to the other player very fast, because if there is, like, let's say 1 second delay, it becomes a problem. And let's say in Emirates, there is a big gateway that is completely regulating whole internet space. That's why it's a big problem for esports teams, and now they're doing a lot of new licenses for esport operators and for esport teams. They're trying to develop this industry because they see how it's growing, and that's why they're making some adjustments in this gateway. So this is in many countries, this is actually the problematic point actually to grow this industry. In terms of esports betting, I think the only one problem that now comes in my mind is arranged matches. So if we're talking about some kind of big teams that known everywhere, that participating in big tournaments, then for sports betting companies, there is no problems of trading these matches, of providing the odds and to collect these odds. But if we're talking about some Brazilian local team tournament, then still esports as a growing sport, as a growing industry, faces many arranged matches, because this is 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 very young players can become, can arrange the result of the match, and this is for industry becoming an issue. But I think this problems was for usual sports like football and basketball and cricket, right? It's still there. But for esports, I think for many countries and for small teams, it's still an issue, but gradually it's developing, it's growing, and small teams becoming big teams, and it's becoming a problem how you can motivate them to cheat in the game if the prize pools are huge. Overall, I think it's just a matter of time when esports will become as popular as usual offline sports.
Sanya, I think Anton really put a very interesting touch on the integrity of esports, and that's going to be a big challenge with especially countries like India, where, like in sports, there's a developed system of grassroots. You come through a district level, state level, national level, and therefore you're in that organized sports sector and the system, and you eventually develop. And so, by the time you're actually playing an elite sport, you already have a network, you already have officials around it behind you, you have a entire ecosystem which is backing you, and which is kind of infuse certain integrity and the education within you. I'm not saying sports betting, in within sports betting integrity is not an issue, it is an issue, but at least you have a lot of system in place. In esport, what is happening, it is younger players who are suddenly, because of their talent, thrown into a competitive sport, and suddenly they see a lot of money involved. So they might be lacking that basic education pertaining to integrity, which I think is a concern, which is what Anton touched upon. Second, I think when we talk about esport and how it is esports betting is going to grow, I think the first thing that in India that needs to grow is esport to be recognized as a sport by the government. And once that starts happening, is when we'll have state units, district units, and we'll have the entire ecosystem developing. That will also entail at some point of time, once government recognizes esport as a valid sport, that you have these cloud computing and the gateways built in where people can compete without any delays. And I think what maybe next for happening for esports in India is maybe developing esports stadias where these facilities are available, where racks are available, where people can actually play without delays. That's not most of it is happening at home through cloud computing. We don't have proper structures or team infrastructure built in. So I think that's something that we need to develop in India. And I think obviously the third is we hope the sports betting in India gets legalized. That's again spur esports as well on to the mainframe.
Uh, all this it's a bit complicated thing to discuss because the people, especially young people in the digital world, they're trying to find a way how to do everything very quickly, very fast. So sometimes they're trying to win the game with all possible things that they have around them. As for me, the digital world has to establish digital rules for all of this stuff. And as our colleagues said before, it's really complicated work, and we have to organize big councils, associations. We have to mix some knowledge. We have to share this knowledge to prevent attempts to cheat anyhow. And everything like this will help to sustainable growth. This is the main reason, to explain people that we have a lot of fair ways to play and to enjoy all of this around us. This easier and could help us feel much more happier. But this is the education way, just to educate people around you. And I hope everything like this is could be real.
No, very well said, Stefan. Ultimately, the whole thing about sport is to, kind of involve people and help them grow and, connect at the same time. And, very well said by Anton and Vidushpat as well, highlighting certain facts of sports integrity, the similar challenges that the traditional sports go through, how that needs to be now inculcated in the main, our esports as well, and how there needs to be now better regulation, rather better definition of esports betting. As we, Vidushpat would also agree that, there needs to be a better wording or definition of esports, betting in India specifically. And yes, providing the infrastructure, as Anton has pointed out, you really need that kind of internet connection. And, since India, especially a country, a market like India, where access to mobile phones is far easier than having a desktop. And that's one reason why esports is so popular on mobile phones here. But the other challenge here is the internet connectivity at a lot of places, although I think it has improved a lot over the years. And hopefully with advancement in technology, we'll see it much better. But thank you, all three of you for actually taking your time out and just explaining to our audience the basic of esports. A lot of the younger audience obviously plays it, but trying to understand how it plays out internationally, what are the laws in India, what does it talk about, and in general, just understanding this whole concept of esports. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for taking time out for this.
Thank you, Sanya.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.